All right, you know the drill. Another Tuesday, another flood of updates rolling in. And as an experienced Windows and Intune admin, well, your world is just this constant cycle, right? Staying ahead, figuring out what really matters, and how to actually use these new capabilities without getting totally lost in the docs, especially with Intune. Well, think of this as your curated shortcut. Welcome to the deep dive, specifically designed for you. Today, we're going to cut right through the noise of Intune Service Release 2507. We're pulling out the key updates that will genuinely impact how you manage your environment. Our mission, to give you actionable insights, maybe a few surprising details so you can immediately harness these updates, optimize things, and just get even better at managing your whole setup.
That's exactly right. We're not just reading a changelog here. We've really dug into 2507 to find the stuff that impacts your day-to-day. Efficiency, security, the whole device management strategy. And to kick things off, let's jump into something pretty significant. Endpoint Privilege Management, or EPM. There's some nice enhancements there.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack EPM. As you know, it's that crucial Intune add-on. Big part of the Zero Trust journey, really. It lets your standard users on Windows 10, Windows 11 do those necessary tasks that usually need admin rights. Think installing approved apps, maybe driver updates, running diagnostics, all without actually giving them those full admin keys to the kingdom. It's least privilege, done effectively.
Precisely. And the real game changer in 2507, the thing that solves a pretty persistent headache for a lot of admins, is wildcard support in elevation rules. Finally.
Yeah.
Before this, if you had an app, say VS Code or something that updated frequently, the file name changed constantly, right? VS Code user setup 1.99.new.exe one day, 2.0.exe the next. You were always chasing those rules. That kind of rigidity, it's gone now.
Okay, that sounds interesting for the day-to-day. It's more than just convenience, isn't it? It sounds like a real shift in flexibility. So how do these wildcards actually work? What's the immediate benefit?
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive. You use a question mark, click for any single character.
Yeah.
And an asterisk. Click for a string of characters.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So for that VS Code example, you just use VS Code user setup.exe. Boom, covers all future versions. And it works for file paths too. So C users downloads will match any user's downloads folder. One critical thing though, wildcards are not supported for file extensions. Just the name and path. So .txt won't work here.
Right, got it. But even so, that immediately translates to a huge boost in operational efficiency, doesn't it? Think about all those apps with rolling version numbers you manage. This feature alone just slashes the time you spend tweaking rules while still keeping things secure. It's just, well, smarter.
It absolutely is. And while we're talking EPM, let's quickly touch on some of the policy configurations, because 2507 refines things a bit. You've got the two main policy types you're familiar with, Windows elevation settings and Windows elevation rules.
Okay, so for the elevation settings policy, beyond just ticking the box to enable EPM, that default elevation response setting feels pretty critical, right? It's the fallback.
It is, exactly. If a user tries to run with elevated access on some random file that doesn't have a specific rule, this default kicks in. Now, you could set it to deny all requests, sure, or require user confirmation, maybe with the business justification or Windows auth prompt. But generally, we kind of lean towards recommending require support approval as a default. It keeps that security check in place, but still gives you a way to handle legitimate one-off needs that aren't covered by a rule.
And that send elevation data for reporting feature, especially with the all endpoint elevation scope option, that sounds incredibly powerful for just figuring out what's going on out there.
Oh, it is. This isn't just data for Microsoft. For you, the admin, it's a goldmine. Seriously, it logs every single elevation attempt on the endpoint, managed by EPM or not. So you get this super granular data that helps you see what apps users are trying to run elevated, where the privilege gaps might be. You can then proactively build rules for things you didn't even realize needed them. It helps you see the invisible workarounds people might be trying.
That really enables a proactive security posture, finding issues before they become problems. Okay, then you have the Windows elevation rules themselves, defining the specifics for EXEs, PowerShell scripts, etc. How should admins think about the different elevation type options there?
Good question. User confirmed is probably your go-to default for most rules. It prompts the user, requires them to confirm, keeps them aware, good balance, automatic elevation, use that very sparingly, only for stuff you absolutely trust, business critical things that need to run elevated without any user interaction. And remember, deny rules are king. They always override any allow rule for the same file. It's your absolute veto power. And support approved offers that workflow where an admin has to explicitly approve the elevation request.
Right. And what about apps that launch other processes? Child processes can be a real security loophole if you're not careful.
Exactly. So the child process behavior setting gives you control there. The default is require rule to elevate. which is the most secure. It means every child process needs its own elevation rule. You can also choose deny all child processes. The third option, allow child processes to run elevated, needs extreme caution. It basically gives the child processes the same elevated rights as the parent. Use that one very, very carefully.
Okay, makes sense. And for really sensitive executables, that file arguments feature letting you create an allow list for command line switches, that seems like a critical security control.
It's fantastic, yeah. Think about something like DSRateCMD. You might want users to be able to run DSRateCMD status or list accounts for diagnostics, right? But you absolutely do not want them running DSRateCMD leave to unjoin the device from Entra ID. So you use file arguments to explicitly allow status and list accounts, but implicitly deny everything else, including leave. Just remember, arguments are case sensitive. And please, never put secrets or passwords in the arguments field. That's a huge security risk. Oh, and quickly, reusable settings groups for certificates. Big time saver. Update a certain group once, it applies everywhere it's linked. Less manual work, fewer errors. Think of them like containers for common settings.
Okay, so with all these different rules and settings, user device, hashes, arguments, conflicts are bound to happen. How does EPM actually decide which rule wins? Understanding that hierarchy seems vital for predictable behavior and, well, troubleshooting when things go wrong.
You're absolutely right. It's crucial. The logic is specific. First, like I said, a deny rule always wins over an allow rule for the same file. No contest. Second, rules deployed directly to a user take precedence over rules deployed to a device. User context wins. Third, if a rule specifies a file hash, that's considered the most specific identifier, so it takes priority. If there's still a tie after all that, the rule that has the most attributes defined like hash, path, publisher, etc., is considered more specific and wins. And finally, if it still comes down to a tie based on targeting and specificity, the elevation type precedence kicks in. User confirmed beats support approved, which beats automatic. Knowing that whole stack helps you figure out why a specific elevation behaved the way it did.
Super helpful. Okay, shifting gears from privileged access, let's look at device configuration itself. The settings catalog keeps getting better, right? Much more granular than old school GPOs, and 2507 adds more, especially for Apple devices.
Absolutely. The settings catalog is incredibly powerful. For iOS and iPadOS in 2507, we've got new cellular private network settings. Things like cellular data preferred, network identifier, enable NR standalone. That's a big deal if you're using private 5G or LTE networks. And for macOS, there are new settings for managing Microsoft Edge, just continuing to give you that fine-grained control needed in modern, often mobile-first environments. Also worth a quick mention, Copilot integration is starting to appear in settings catalog too for things like what-if analysis and policy summaries. Still early days, but definitely something to watch.
Interesting. And speaking of keeping the environment tidy, device cleanup rules. Intune's way of automatically handling stale devices in your inventory, keeping reports clean, they've hit general availability now in 2507 with a key improvement.
Yes, exactly. GA is great, but the big news is per platform configuration. This is a huge improvement. Instead of just one global rule for all devices, you can now set different inactivity cleanup timers for Windows, iOS, iPadOS, macOS, and Android independently. Much more granular control. You can set the inactivity period anywhere from 30 days up to 270 days. Now, it's really important to stress these rules conceal the device record from reports in Intune. They don't automatically trigger a wipe or a retire action. It's about cleaning up your view. All these concealment actions are logged in the audit logs, of course. And one more thing, there's a new RBAC permission needed to manage these rules now, so make sure you check your custom roles if you delegate this task.
Automated inventory hygiene, always a win for busy admins. Less manual cleanup, more accurate reporting. Good stuff. This naturally leads us to another fundamental area, device lifecycle actions. Understanding the precise difference between wipe and retire is just paramount, isn't it? Especially for security and compliance. And there's some nuances now.
Oh, absolutely critical. Let's break it down. Wipe basically means a factory reset, restores the device to its out-of-box state. But for Windows 10 version 1709 and later, there's a really useful option. Wipe device, but keep enrollment state and associated user account. This is fantastic for device repurposing. It nukes user files, user install apps, non-default settings, but it keeps the user accounts, the machine state like its domain or Entra ID join, and crucially, the MDM enrollment with Intune. Makes reprovisioning much faster. There's also an option now to continue to wipe even if device loses power, which is helpful. But the big warning, data wiped this way is generally unrecoverable. And a common point of confusion, wipe does not remove the Windows Autopilot registration from the device object. That's a separate step if needed.
Right. So wipe is the big hammer, but with that clever Windows option for keeping the enrollment, what about retire? How does that differ?
Retire is much gentler. It focuses only on removing the corporate footprint managed by Intune. It removes managed app data, settings pushed by Intune, email profiles assigned via Intune, but critically it leaves personal data alone. Photos, personal files, personal apps, they stay. And it removes the device from Intune management. It won't check in anymore. The exact impact varies a bit by OS. On iOS, company apps and data go, personal stuff stays. Android enterprise work profiles. The whole profile gets removed. macOS loses managed profiles, certs, but again, personal data is safe. Windows uninstalls company apps pushed via Intune, removes Intune provisioned email, but personal files remain untouched. Knowing these platform specifics is vital for choosing the right action, whether it's for a lost device or an employee leaving, or just BYOD cleanup. Oh, and a quick tip, using delete in the Intune Admin Center usually triggers a wipe or retire, depending on the OS and how it was enrolled. It will suspend BitLocker if Intune manages encryption. Deleting from the Microsoft Entra Admin Center, however, doesn't remove it from Intune management on its own.
Okay, that distinction is incredibly important. Now, for something many macOS admins have been waiting for, big news. Local Admin Password Solution, LAPS, is now generally available for macOS devices. This really brings macOS management up to par, offering proper enterprise-grade local admin password management for Apple endpoints.
Yes, this is a huge milestone. It's integrated right into macOS Automated Device Enrollment, or ADE, profiles. Works for macOS 12 and newer devices enrolled via ADE. What it does is provision a dedicated local administrator account during enrollment. And critically, it sets a strong, randomized, 15-character alphanumeric password for that account. Intune securely stores this password, encrypted of course, and it automatically rotates it every 6 months. Plus, you, the admin, can manually trigger a password rotation anytime through remote actions in the Intune Admin Center. It also lets you configure a standard user account during enrollment too.
That's fantastic. Secure, automated, local admin password management, finally consistent across platforms. What are the key things admins need to know about deploying this? Any crucial security points?
Right, first key point. This applies only during enrollment, so it's for new devices being enrolled with a LAPS-enabled ADE profile, or existing devices that you re-enroll using such a profile. Devices must be synced from Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager. And here's the crucial security part. Viewing or rotating these passwords requires specific permissions. There are 2 new RBAC permissions. Rotate macOS admin password and view macOS admin password. These are found under the enrollment programs category in RBAC. And here's the kicker. They are not included in any of the built-in Intune rules. You absolutely must create a custom role and assign these permissions to whoever needs to manage or view these LAPS passwords.
Okay, that RBAC detail is critical. Don't assume built-in roles have it. What about configuring the actual LAPS account itself?
You get some good flexibility there. You can use variables to create dynamic account names based on device info. Things like serial number, managed device name, managed device name. Helps with standardization. You also have the option to hide this managed admin account from the login screen in system settings, which is generally a good idea. For monitoring, if you have the right RBAC permissions, you can see the current password and when it was last rotated right there in the device's overview page in Intune. And naturally, all activities viewing the password, rotating it, are logged in the Intune audit logs. Look for Get Admin Account Dieto and rotate Local Admin Password Managed Device. One important caveat, though, that might surprise some folks. Currently, this Managed Local Admin Account does not receive a secure token on macOS. The first user who logs into the Mac gets the secure token. This means certain OS functions that rely on having that token, like managing File Vault or some deeper system task, might still require interaction from that first token-holding user, not directly via the LAPS account. Something to be aware of.
Got it. A key limitation to understand. But even with that caveat, macOS LAPS is a massive step forward for security and manageability on the Apple side. It significantly cuts down the risk from static local admin accounts. Okay, finally, let's just quickly touch on a couple of other app-related updates in 2507 that might be relevant for some listeners.
Sure thing. Just briefly, on the OEM config side of things for Android Enterprise, there's a new RugGear OEM config app available now. It just reinforces the value of OEM config, right? For getting those really specific, granular device settings configured when native Intune policies don't cover them. Remember the 500 KB profile size limit, and the OEM provides and supports the schema.
Right, relying on the vendor for those. And any new protected apps?
Yeah, the list keeps growing. Intune app protection policies now support Vault CRM by Viva and also WorkVivo. Just shows the continuous expansion of that app protection ecosystem, helping you secure data in more of your critical line of business apps. Smaller updates, but important for broadening that coverage.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive into Intune Service Release 2507. We've covered some really impactful ground. The added flexibility and security from EPM wildcards and those granular file argument controls real game changers there. The improved automation with per-platform device cleanup rules, it definitely streamlines inventory management. And of course, the big one for many, the arrival of robust, generally available macOS LIPS capabilities that fundamentally changes macOS admin account management.
Yeah, the so what here for you, the experienced admin listening in, is pretty clear, I think. These updates genuinely give you more control, they strengthen your security posture, and they offer more streamlined ways to manage your increasingly diverse device fleet. It's not just a list of new features, it's about making your job more efficient and making your whole environment safer.
So, as you head back to manage your environment, here's something to think about. How will these new capabilities, particularly macOS LAPS and maybe the detailed reporting you can now get from EPM, how will they fundamentally change the way you approach managing privileges and device lifecycles? What new doors do these insights open for being truly proactive about security, moving beyond just reacting? Maybe start by looking into those new macOS LAPS RBAC permissions and getting them assigned correctly in your custom roles.
Absolutely. And for all the nitty-gritty implementation steps, the how-to, always head over to the Microsoft Learn documentation. That's your definitive source for the deep configuration details.
And that's all the time we have for this deep dive. We hope you feel a bit more informed, a little more prepared, and maybe even a little excited about leveraging these new Intune capabilities. Thanks for joining us.